Mine's more like lunch.
That's going to sound.
Breakfast.
Breakfast.
A breakfast. The reason you're doing this is you're going to go for a 2 week.
Yeah.
Oh my. Should we get a
I know.
5 weeks without you?
Yeah. A little bit of peer.
Oh, the Spanish coat on you. Okay. You can tell.
Difficulty. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the generous participation in this. You're indulging me because what I'm actually doing with this is practicing this presentation that I will be giving on Tuesday night.
So you are welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So I think for those who've worked at Green Cape for more than a year, you might observe a pattern, which is at this time of year, I always disappear for 2 weeks. I've never been to a Green Cape Heritage Day celebration, which is a black mark on my CV because it's, I think, one of the best days of the Green Cape year. So I'm always just in a field somewhere with Americans, and my phone starts bombing with like videos, and it's all food and delicious stuff. But I'm having a good time, and in my own way, I'm celebrating our heritage as well. So, yeah, basically, before I joined Green Cape, I worked for a while, and then I resigned from my job, and I went and traveled for 6 months. And when I came back from that, I got an opportunity. I was looking for work, didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I had been keen on bird watching, and I got connected to someone who has a bird tour company. Essentially, they specialize in birding Africa, and they specialize in Africa-based birding tours. The clientele are upmarket, usually American or European clients who pay quite a lot of money for very specialized
Some chairs in the front.
and so basically I started doing that on a freelance basis, and I really liked it, but there's a very strong seasonality element to touring, so it's very much a summer and spring based activity, and it drops off quite substantially in winter. And it's also, in its own way, extremely exhausting and stressful work to do, because you basically are never off. So when I go on tour, I'm working 2 weeks flat out. So it's nice to be away from screens. But from next week, we effectively from dinner time Tuesday next week until the following Wednesday, 2 weeks Wednesday, I'm out of action. Anyway, that's a little bit of the context. I now do much less of the guiding because I work here, as you know. I do occasional day trips on weekends, and I typically do pelagic trips. I go out to sea sometimes to do day trips out to sea. But one thing I've retained is this particular tour, and it's a tour that I've done for a number of years now, and I really like it. And it's actually Naturalist Journeys are the American company that run this tour, but they outsource it to Birding Africa. And typically the type of clients they bring are not too hardcore, so I've kept it on. And it's also worth just mentioning that it makes a lot of financial sense for me to do it. So I take leave while I do it. I'm taking my annual leave to do this, but then I get paid a fee to do the guiding, and I also earn money in tips. So I get usually a little bit of US dollars at the end of a trip like this, and my food is covered while I'm doing it. So it's become quite a very helpful way of getting me through January, basically. So that's a little bit of the context. So yeah, it's a 2 week tour. It's called the South Africa tour that I do, and I'm going to just jump through this. I do this. There's another guy. There's two of us who run the tour. So some of these slides are his. I'm not sure why he includes this. I know he's got an anecdote that he does here, but yeah.
So this is a presentation you'll be doing to.
Yes, sorry, maybe I missed this. So what happens is this is not a requirement of the tour itself, but it's something that Dalton, this other guide, and myself do. We always go and meet the clients the night before the tour at their accommodation, and we have dinner with them there, and we do a presentation about what to expect over the next 2 weeks. So that's what I'm doing with you guys today. I'm talking you through a lot of pictures. We are updating the presentation this year, so there's probably typos and stuff because he has to have a go at it. And we've agreed as a joke this year to do a CV for each other. So there's no CV for me in here, but this is his one that I've done. So that's Dalton. He works for the City of Cape Town Nature Conservation. He manages, I think it's in there, he manages 14 nature reserves in Cape Town. So he's very senior, and it's been a huge privilege working with him on these tours every year. We very much treat each other as equals, but I would say he is a much better field biologist, certainly in the Cape. I think when we go up to the east, I can match him. He was born in Cape Town. There's some various things there. We both drive a quantum during the trip, and he labeled his the fun bus. So I've branded mine the adventure bus, and there's lots of banter between us. Yeah, that's just a little bit I think about him. I've included this either as well. So this is a program we use called eBird. Most of our clients use it. And this is his profile on eBird. So he's seen 1,634 species. You could see in the various countries where he's birded, and the more red the country, the more number of species he's seen. And my claim to fame is that I've seen slightly more than him. So he doesn't know this, but he's going to find out on Tuesday.
Is that Uganda? Or...
Yes, I said I did some backpacking in South America. This is Ethiopia. I did a special trip there just before COVID. I was very lucky, and that's Uganda. Yeah. So I've done most of my heavy birding in
Denmark and
yes,
Norway.
I've just added Denmark and Sweden. But if you look at the bars, I've seen 600.
Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, everyone share nicely.
Guys, there's chairs up here.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Good spot. Good spot.
Sorry, that
How's it going so far?
Yeah. So I was just saying, I'll go back a slide for those of you coming in. Dalton, who I guide with, he in his CV that he sent to me, he emphasized that he's birded all over the world, and he has, as you can see. But when I looked at his eBird profile, you see 1,634, and mine's 1,673. He doesn't know that, so I need to know that.
Also,
Yeah.
he started in I think you only started recording in 2011.
No, but actually, I hear what you're going to say. This is a relatively new app. I actually introduced him to it, so he probably has records and he hasn't yet gotten around to add it. That's
in theory, he started in '86, and so you've seen more birds in the shortest space of time.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've been very fortunate with where I've been able to travel, and yes, the discerning eye will even include that I have a bird list of 22 species from Antarctica, and I recently added my 1,000th photo.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was just a little bit luck. I'm trying to start capturing when I'm in the field, start making voice notes of calls. It's a citizen science data thing, but what's very nice is you get your own profile. So I've added this year. South Africa has 18 endemic bird species. If you don't know what the word endemic means, it basically means they are found within South Africa and nowhere else in the world. The colors are not relevant to 12 bird threatened with extinction. It's the species that we hope to see on the trip. So the ones in white we won't see on my trip. We could theoretically see plain-billed button quail, but they're a very skulking little quail species that you have to actually walk in a long line through a field and hopefully flush. We won't do that, it's too damaging to habitat. But we should see Quran, nice woodpecker we saw on the last tour, so we hopefully do it again. I'll talk about Agulhas longboard lark. Yeah, and the yellow ones are the slightly trickier ones. The green ones, I'm pretty confident we will see. Then there's this slide, which is to say that there are another 20 near endemics, or another way of framing this, they're endemic, including Lesotho and Swaziland, and south of Limpopo. Sorry, Eswatini. Correct. Thank you.
That's why you're doing the presentation with us.
Yeah.
You want feedback.
No, perfect. And again, the same thing. The ones in green we should see. You'll see, for example, the Drakensberg species, mountain pipits, also Drakensberg species, African rock pipit. We don't do the Drakensberg on this trip, so we don't get some of those. I haven't yet put in the slide that includes Southern Africa, so south of the Zambezi, which is another range of endemism. But just to say that's what happens. We like to tell the clients where they are because they've come from a long way.
They are American. Nicholas.
Yeah.
So bad.
No, not the
How far back?
No, that far back. So you've indicated prior that you're never here for Heritage Day, but I feel like we can have a point of view here for Heritage Day, because what we're planning is a map where everyone is basically going to mark where they are from. So it would be pretty cool if you could forward that. We have got map charts that is going to create something, but maybe we can have something, lingering there.
Sure, I will send you this presentation.
Thank you.
The tour is 2 weeks long, and it's essentially broken into 2 legs. So we spend the first leg roughly doing this, and the second leg doing that. And the point of this is to say that I've just gone through the various endemic species and why we don't see a bunch. So there's stuff that's very special to this desert region and the Drakensberg mountain range as well, that we don't really get into. So our first leg is the Western Cape leg. We spend a week, and we have essentially 4 routes that we do for the first week. So the one is up the west coast. Sorry, I'm not even touch the screen. There's this little yellow bit which is in and around the city itself. Then this trip here might not be visible at the back. There's a blue line out to the canyon. This is fishing grounds, so it's our pelagic. And then we do this trip through the Agulhas plain. You can see this light patch here to De Hoop. This is a bit of natural vegetation, and it's really cool because historically what's happened is that you can see this mountain range. It's called the Cape Fold Belt. It's separated these 2 areas. So there's an endemic longboard lark here, and there's an endemic longboard lark there, and it dictates some of our movement.
And it's fold mountains because it's literally the mountains were folded.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we welcome the clients to Cape Town, the world's most biodiverse city.
Woo!
There's over 3,000 plant species. Yeah.
That's a candelabra.
South Africa, depending on the system used to classify, we're either the 3rd most biodiverse country in the world, or we're the 6th most biodiverse country in the world. But we're an outlier in that we're not within the topics per se, and it's led entirely from our Cape floristic region. So there are 6 floristic regions in the world, kingdoms rather. Look how small our one is. It's the only one within a country. The rest are all significantly bigger. Yeah, 20% of Africa's plants grow in the Western Cape. We do place quite a strong emphasis on plants in the beginning of the tour. We have incredibly rich bulbs, in particular geophytes, and we tell a story about and many of them so what's really interesting about the Cape region that's perhaps not necessarily well known here is that it's like a perfect storm of environmental factors have come together. And there are archaeologists who hold the view that at some point in human history we were quite vulnerable and existing along the southern coastline, where we would have been foraging for marine life, but also using poisonous bulbs, of which we have that you don't get poisonous bulbs anywhere else in the world, but ours are poisonous, and that's because of the low nutrient environment they grow in. They don't want to be dug up and eaten. We figured that out, that you could get toxins from bulbs and put them on arrowheads and shoot things and become effective hunters. This is our ericas. There's 2 species of erica in Europe. You think of a heath of a, we have thousands. And one of the unique things we have is very unusual ocean currents. So we've got this nutrient poor geology. We've got a summer rainfall region, and we've got a winter rainfall region. We've got a cold Benguela current, and we've got a warm Agulhas current, and it creates all sorts of interesting dynamics. And we have 7 endemic coastal species, bird species, linked to the Benguela current. I'm going to forget them now, but one of them is the Cape Gannet. We're most likely on the tour to see them flying, less likely to see them standing. But if you're ever near or around Lambert's Bay, up the west coast, there is an incredible breeding colony there. You should properly look at them. And I just am using this to show off, but I went up there at the end of last year because there was an Australian gannet. Very similar looking like, but it's got a dark eye and it doesn't have the length of black stripe that the Cape one has. That's it. Yeah, that's it standing amongst the whole of the Cape
And
The
the other one's like welcome it in the river.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
And it's rings.
Yeah, they knew that it's you can see it's ring. So
Somebody must have.
no, well, this is the colony at Lambert's Bay. They were aware of it. There's several that come in because they're colony dwelling, so they get lots to find sisters because they're like that. So Cape Gannet's one of them. This is bank cormorant. So we have a bunch of different cormorant species, but by far our most endangered is this one, bank cormorant. It's not the best photo because they're hard to get to. They have white backs sometimes that you can see, but otherwise they're dark with a yellow eye. The other one that's endemic to this is the Cape cormorant, which is much more numerous. African oyster catcher is another of those. And the ones that I've left on, I don't have pictures for, is African penguin, Damara tern, and Hartlib's gull. Hartlib's gull, we have 2 species of gull that you can typically see. The big one with the black back, and Hartlib's is the smaller one with the grey back. Anyway, that's just to say the coastal species, that's part of what we look for on our trip. But we're in the Fabulous region for the first part, and it's very interesting habitat. It's fire-driven, as the picture suggests. I've already mentioned low nutrients, winter rainfall. You've also got very undulating topography here, which has been part of the reason why you get this speciation, because the low nutrient environment, we have a lot of plant diversity, but not a lot of bird and mammal diversity. So I've mentioned endemism. There's a different relationship in our country between endemism. Where we have high endemism, we have low diversity. Where we have high diversity, we have low endemism. So our second week of the trip, we go into the eastern parts of the country. We see a lot more, but a lot more of it is broadly possible to see through Africa because it's savanna habitats that spread through Africa. But yeah, so where we have this, the reason I mentioned that is that in terms of plants and seed dispersal and fruit dispersal, when you don't have a lot of animals to play that role, you're more likely reliant on wind or on, for example, insects. A lot of famous plants have got a thing called an alliansome on their seed, which is actually for ants. So ants do the seed dispersing. But what it means is that if you've got a mountain, that's a hard barrier. So some species you find only in certain mountain valleys. And then there's a very similar looking one on the other side, but it's different. And that's part of what's driving the diversity here. So our first day, usually, yeah.
So as well as what do you mean by fire driven?
That's a good question. So many of the species are adapted to encourage fire. So you'll see if you ever go for a hike, take a look at how many plants retain dead branches. Proteas typically have lots of dead material in them. Others, you'll break them and smell. They've got like an oil. They've actually got like a fire, not retardant. What's the opposite? Accelerant. Yes. And then what they've discovered more and more in like places like Kirstenbosch and Stellenbosch, where they've got herbariums and nurseries, is many of the seeds will not germinate without the presence of smoke, like smoke aerosols. You have to smoke seeds in order to get them to germinate. So it's
Specifically rare, there's some rare orchards that literally only come out when there's fire. So
Yeah,
my friends would
exactly.
go orchard chasing after a fire.
But one of the favorite things that people do is whenever there's a fire, is you go in afterwards for fire lilies. They pop up. So what it is what it really means is that actually often the new generation will only establish when the whole landscape is burnt. So it's a weird and very challenging ecological responsibility for city and for Cape nature, because we have, now we're in a, if you look around here, we've got the mountain all around us. We have to suppress fire, but we actually need it.
Controlled burning.
Yeah, but even controlled burning is not great, because in what it's described, it's controlled, it's not natural. So it's a huge conservation management challenge. So yeah, day one is we start on the west coast. It's because we're trying to capture the last of the flowers. They're quite late this year, so I think we're going to be lucky. But usually we're at the end of September, and the flower season is August into September, and by the end you're kind of out. But this is a funny picture, because look at the beautiful floral space. Everyone's looking at birds. So I mentioned that map. We go up the west coast, and we're looking for some interesting birds. This is southern black horan. It's a big bird, and they call at this time of year. The female doesn't have the black. She's just sort of like this all over, so incredibly cryptic. But the males stand up and open and reveal themselves. It's a Western Cape endemic bird. This is an endemic raptor. It's black harrier. It's actually in the logo of Birding Africa, the company. They are more widespread through the country, but this time of year they're on the west coast. Then we visit a Cape weaver colony. You probably have all seen weavers, and you've probably all seen Cape weavers, but weavers are unique family to Africa. And so we want to point that out to the visiting clients. And they're also really unique because they're the only other animal organism on Earth that can tie a true knot. So weavers and ourselves can tie knots. It's not just birds that we see that are unique. So this is blessbook. It's an indigenous Western Cape antelope species. There's a sister species I'll point out just now. And when we go to De Hoop, when we go down to the Gullis Plain, we actually have a dung beetle that's unique there, and it can't fly. It's a flightless dung beetle. All other dung beetles can fly. This one's got a fused elytra. It hasn't needed to fly as much in the fangorse, so it's lost that ability. So yeah, this is when we do the De Hoop section of the tour. So this is the drive, leave the city. We come around here, around Betty's Bay, and at a place called Roy Else, which is a hotspot for Cape rock jumper, which is an endemic family. So we have two endemic bird families in South Africa, the rock jumpers and the sugar birds. And we do a trip around there. We also see penguins and some of the cormorants I mentioned. And then we do this Gullis Plain. There's a unique lark there that we look for, and we go to De Hoop. And just over here is a mountain called Potberg, which is the southernmost breeding population of Cape vultures in the country. So that's another picture of the Bontebok. Just note that it's white, goes all the way. There's a sister species, Blessbook, and it's got a break in that.
Looks like a candle on his.
Yeah. This is a Cape vulture I mentioned, and this is the lark. This is Dalton's picture, so I've also snuck in my picture to one up him. That's my picture of a Gullis longbilled lark. So there's what we call a longbilled lark complex. There's about 5 or 6 of these longbilled lark species that are all throughout the country, that they've been separated, and this is the Gullis version. And then another endemic raptor, jackal buzzard. You've probably seen these. They're quite common. In fact, there's often a pair on Philip Corsano Drive on the pylons there. And another endemic mammal, this is Cape Mountain zebra. It's actually, the Latin for this is equus zebra. It's the first zebra that was named. So the ones we're most familiar with are plain zebras that you see in the Serengeti or Kruger or whatever. But the Cape Mountain zebra has a dewlap, and the stripes don't go all the way under the belly. And we have a great chance of seeing our national bird, the blue crane. The Gullis Plain is a stronghold. We'll see the world's biggest bird, which is the ostrich. and it's showing how big it is there relative to the grey reebok that are added. This is at De Hoop, beautiful spot. And another endemic African family are the mouse birds. So we get 3 species. This is speckled mouse bird. They have a very low nutrient diet. They're quite incredible, and they clamber through the bushes. So they often see them in dense bush like that.
That can be a Disney character.
Yeah, they all have this little crest. You gonna show us this snake? I don't think I have any snake pictures in here. we did. So when we visit the hook, it's also during the calving season for southern right whales, and we get amazing views of southern right whales from De Hoop. There's a place called Cape-to-Kruger where you can go. This is not a southern right whale. This is a humpback whale, but we see it on the pelagic. But I included that to remind myself to say we see whales. And whilst we're in the city itself, birding on that leg that I showed, the small city-based leg, is that, and I think this is something that we don't realize, is that we have the world's southernmost population of primates, again, other than ourselves. And the baboons you get here in the Cape are really unique because they feed along the coastline. They basically, there you go, they're scavenging along the floor. One of the things they look for intentionally are mermaids' purses, which are shark eggs. So again, another very difficult conservation management issue because of human and wildlife conflict, and lots of people think we should shoot them out, but there's actually some unique ecology to this thing that warrants protecting. We go to Kirstenbosch. You've probably all been.
Most of these pictures taken by you guys over the years.
They're all ours. They're all ours. Yeah. So we go to Kirstenbosch. I mean, surely everyone here has been to Kirstenbosch, but it's actually an amazing place to go birding. And if you haven't gone, I was going to say, if you haven't gone, this is the time of year to go. I mean, they've always got stuff flowering, but this is that's how it looks right now. Like Jurassic Park with pretty flowers.
Maybe have that premise there. Maybe we should have
quite a bit of summer concerts.
So this is a particular day where we have 2 activities. We do Kirstenbosch in the morning. We try to get there in the morning before the crowds because it's best for the birding, and then we go to a place called Strandfontein. I've been with Lauren before, and a few older green capers, which is a wastewater treatment facility, but it's a brilliant birding area. This is a terrible photo. I need to find a better one because this is a Cape sugar bird, but the male, it's a young one and hasn't yet developed. It has long plumes. It's the other endemic family. And we show them sunbirds as well. This is malachite sunbird. Lots of different species of sunbirds. So we don't have hummingbirds in Africa. We have sunbirds, and the equivalent. And Strandfontein, they have all of these detention ponds that are obviously nutrient rich, and you get amazing bird life. So these are flamingos. Probably our biggest single list in terms of the number of species we see in the Cape is when we go here. Not as much of the endemic stuff, but it's all waterfowl and lots of ducks and things going crazy. These are black-winged stilts. They're actually 3 youngsters, all of them. But you can see they've got these long probing bills, so they're feeding for stuff in the crustaceans or whatever in the water. Maybe just to go back to the flamingos, they've got these bills of bristles and they actually put their heads in upside down, and then they filter feed for stuff in the water. And then you get your hunters along the edge. So this is a purple heron, and they've got you can see that like coiled neck, and it's ready to strike.
It's the snake equivalent.
Yeah. Then you'll see it says day 5 or 6. Actually, I need to update the days relative to the program now, but the pelagic is always a variable in October because it has to be done on the day with the low wind. So for this upcoming one, it's actually day 1, 2, or 3. But what it is that off the Cape with that Benguela current, we have very good fishing grounds, and that means very good pelagic birds and mammals to see. Don't be distorted by this picture. This is a much bigger bird than that one, but this one's just closer. That's a white-chinned petrel, and that's a shy albatross. And we leave from Simonstown, and we get to this point. That's Cape Point as you see it from the sea.
Cool.
So some of you might have been up at that lighthouse there. That lighthouse, I get the story confused. I think that this lighthouse was the original one, but it was a very ineffectual lighthouse because it was often in cloud. So they had to make this lower one. But this area is where you stop. We come along and we actually have to stop here and radio to the Coast Guard to say we're about to go out to deep sea. And it's called the washing machine because the current's coming in and it's hitting this and it's all, so you sort of do this and the water shows up here. And so any clients that are green in the bay before now, when we get this, what we say now, this is what it's going to really be like.
I'll skip off this day.
This is a wandering albatross. It's the largest wingspan of any bird in the world.
What's the wingspan?
I think it's 3.5 meters.
Oh.
It's an incredible
Is that
bird
like-
to see.
Is that like the further than the width of?
So the door is about 2 meters.
That's huge. It's
So these doors
absolutely
are
huge.
higher, but your average door is
They're
about
absolutely massive. You can't believe it. And the interesting thing about they wandering albatrosses when they are born, when they fledge and leave the islands, the oceanic islands they're born on,
Yeah, it's
they
basically
don't
what
return
we-
to land for about 7 years until they reach sexual maturity. So they live out at sea. They can sit on the water, but they have
So
an
they
incredible, it's what they call dynamic soaring. They do very little flapping. They just glide and they have this, if you've ever put your hand out of the car and you do this, you can imagine that's sort of, they use the wind. All these pelagic birds fly incredibly close to the water. They're picking up the air. It's an amazing thing to witness whilst you're on the boat doing this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a black-browed, it's an immature black-browed albatross. What happens is that what we do in regard to, we're specifically looking for INJ or sea harvest or any of the trawlers that we can find. Because if you find a trawler, the birds tend to follow them, and if you're really lucky, you get them processing and catch, and then it's pandemonium. And this is sort of, you can see, this is Dalton's picture, not mine. He was lost the horizon on the boat, but just gives you kind of, it's just chaos. And this is just a picture, it's from the wrong view, but this is a giant petrel fighting a shy albatross, and the giant petrels are like the vultures of the ocean. So that's the Western Cape leg. Then we fly to Johannesburg, and we do the Mpumalanga leg. And we have essentially 4 main stops in this leg. So we go to a place called Dahlstrom first, which is high altitude grassland.
Where do you stay in Elstrom?
We set a roast. Well, we stay in a variety of houses all next to each other because of the size of the group. Clients need, one thing about it is that most of the clients are average age between 60 and 80. And Americans want as much information as you can give them. It's tricky because things don't always go according to plan. So we try and tell them this is what it's going to be. It's going to be a 2.5-hour drive so that you're prepared for what to expect. We drive to Dahlstrom. It's now called, got the name, but and this is sort of what you get in a single picture of that area. So it's still up on the, still high veld. You get this high altitude grassland, which has got unique stuff in it. You get these rocky outcrops. You get natural escarpment forest, and then a lot of plantation, which is what you can see, clear plantation.
Just the one like drove past there something a month ago, like that whole place is black, like it's burned.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know
it's also a fire
I don't know if
ecosystem.
that's going to affect like what you see with like that whole region is like burned down.
Well, hopefully it's got a bit of rain, then the shoots come through, then it'll be golden. This is Buff Street Chat. It's one of the endemics, and it loves that high altitude rocky stuff. I mentioned the Gullis long-billed lark earlier. This is eastern long-billed lark. The first time I did this tour, this was the first time I'd seen this bird, so it was exciting. I was showing the clients, and I was like, "Oh, this is really exciting." And then last year I saw it better than I've ever seen it. So this is the same species last year. I got so close, and I really love the small brown larks. I know it just looks like a brown bird, but it's this of all of them. It's got the shortest bill of the long-billed lark complex, and it's very buffy compared to others. It doesn't have much striping. It was more interested in something in the sky than it was of me when I was doing it. You get these 2 Proteus species that go up the Drakens, essentially follow the Drakensberg, escape the Fynbos and carry on. And because of that, there's a sugarbird that's gone with it. And this is Gurney's sugarbird. It's the other one. So I showed you the Cape earlier. This is much harder to see Burgundies. So we have a couple of places we go for it. But really, I think a very beautiful bird. And then you get some cool high altitude mammals as well. This is mountain reedbuck. These guys are very skittish. They're very photo-scented ranges. Black wildebeest. They're not blue wildebeest, black wildebeest. And then I mentioned earlier the blessed book. You can see the break. So this is more widespread than the Monterbook. The Monterbook's more isolated, but yeah, high altitude. So we've gone to Johannesburg, we've gone to Delstrom. Now we go to a place here. And what's difficult, this map doesn't show us on the escarpment. It's called Mount Sheba. So we're starting to head down into the Lowveld. We go through Mashishing, which is now called Leidenburg. Go through a brilliant place. Those photos I was showing you now are from a place called Verlorenvlei. But we head to Mount Sheba, which is on the escarpment, and you can see the greenery. So you get a very narrow belt of essentially scarp forest. We stay at a place called Mount Sheba. This is the hotel grounds where we stay, but the point of this is to show the beautiful forest vegetation around the hotel. It can be quite misty because it's forest, so it tends to do.
But also very beautiful.
Yeah. And it's very difficult photographing in forest, so the photo quality goes right off now. But this is a really striking bird. You can just see the little bit of the red. That's such typical behavior that has its back to you. It's an arena trogon. It's one of very few birds that's named after a woman. That bird is riddled with essentially white male bad problems. But this is the arena trogon, and the person who named it had met a woman called Marina and loved her, so he named it after that. And this is Neisner Lurie. The Neisner Turaco is the new name, the new nickname. But they get up, they follow this bit up into the scarp forest. Otherwise, you normally see them along the south coast. This is not the best photo, but it's a really lovely bird. It's called a white-starred robin. You can't see the star, but it has a little white dot just by its eye, but I couldn't get a better focus on it. And this is an olive woodpecker. So a lot of effort for few species here, but it's the only bit of forest birding we do. This is a very random one, but it's called a bar-throated apelus. But I include this picture because there's 13 subspecies, and we get these here in the Cape as well. But this is one from Mount Sheba, and it's quite yellow and quite olive green. The ones we get here are quite slate grey and white, and there's variation the whole way along. So I always tell the clients, make a note every apelus you see through the tour, because with more studies they might be separated into unique, distinct species. And we try and do a bit of butterflying. It's called a forest brown. I tell the client, this is one of my jokes, I tell the clients, it's the best, one of the best different accommodation we have, so it's a good place for monkey business. Right, then we do the very exciting bit. It becomes less, this part of the tour starts to get easier for me, because up until now I'm working very hard, but now we go down into the Kruger National Park. And we start at a place, a camp called Satara. You haven't been there, I don't know. That's the camp, very changed, lots of trees, but the surrounding area is open savanna. It's the closest thing we get to sort of Kenyan, East Africa savanna.
Cheetah Valley.
And what's really nice is that we meet some subcontractors there. This is a guy in there called Andrew. I think that's Dalton in the car there. And we put the clients into these open vans. So the way it works is that we spend 2 nights at each of the 2 camps we stay in Kruger. When we are moving, Dalton and I are driving the Quantums in tandem with these guys, and we've got the bags, and we basically become porters. We've got to get to camp first, put their bags in their rooms, get them set up. On the days when we're coming back to the same camp, we're in the vehicles with them. But we're all connected via radios, so we're all working together to spot stuff. And it's really nice for the clients, because they're out getting a first-class experience. This is grey go-away bird. It used to be called grey lurie. It's grey go-away bird. The go-away birds are unique. It's just standardized names. So lurie's an South African name.
Okay.
But there are other go-away birds through Africa.
Oh.
Bare-cheeked and bare-faced, I think. No, white-bellied, sorry, white-bellied. Anyway, this is our grey lurry.
I've been calling
it
it
grey
grey
lurry.
lurry.
You can still call it grey lurry. It's not incorrect.
Like the original bird call. Say,
So that's, we see lots of these, but they're an iconic bird. I've already mentioned on this tour that we see the largest bird, we see the bird with the biggest wingspan, and we see the heaviest flying bird, and this Corey busters. All three of those. And we see lots of big brown eagles. This, I think, is a Wahlberg's eagle, if I remember correctly. And we see vultures. This is a hooded vulture. It's a breeding adult with pink, inflamed face. This is something to always look out for on vultures or carrion-eating animals or birds. They're featherless. It's so that parasites can't accumulate around their eye and mouth and valuable parts. So they're featherless. Yeah, and they are persecuted all around the world, but they do an incredible service. They remove parasites, pathogens. Yeah, exactly. This is an incredibly abundant bird, and it causes us a problem every single year we do the tour because we see them and we're rushing to camp. And we know we're going to see another 3,000, but the clients freak out because they've never seen a lilac-breasted roller before. So we stop and show them the lilac-breasted roller, and then we see lots more. And there's other species of roller.
How many names of birds did
that's white males in the room somewhere. Lilac-breasted roller. This is a secretary bird. This is an eagle. This is an eagle that has decided to become a crane or a stork. Incredible bird. Another unique. Yeah, these you talk about snakes. These love snakes. That's what they're after.
Is that as a result of cross collaboration?
Sorry.
Is that as a result of cross collaboration? You're saying it's a crane.
No. So no. There's no. A crane and a stork and an eagle didn't come together to produce it. What I'm saying is that the ancestor of this was an eagle, and gradually over time it's become a ground-dwelling eagle, and it's developed the characteristics that you get in cranes or in herons, which is long-leggedness.
Okay.
And freakiness.
Yeah.
No links.
And you see, it's got incredibly long eyelashes, which is an adaptation to looking with your eyes, hunting and keeping the sun out, because its habitat is grassland, so it's not in shade, operating in full sunlight. This is a very challenging bird for us because clients really want to see it, and there are a lot of birds on the tour where we have a spot, and we know on that day we've got to keep going and pick up the species because this is our shot. Whereas this one, you can actually see them. You can go head to Malmesbury, and they look on either side of the N7. They're often there, but there's no one spot that they're guaranteed. So we've missed the last two tours. There's actually an American guy on the tour who is he's not a guide, but per se, but he's from Naturalist Journeys, and he's responsible for being a middleman if the clients want someone to speak to and want to not make it Dalton and I. And he's not seen this. He keeps telling us we've got to find him one. So I'm hoping this is the year. This is Bateleur, exactly, which is a French translation for trapeze or acrobat. And it's because it's got a very short tail, and when you see them fly, it wobbles. It looks like it's standing on a trapeze, basically. And this is I just tell the clients that I also stop at small brown birds. This is rufous neck lark, which is common. And then of course we have to show them the big hairy stuff. That photo of Dalton earlier, this is the same lion. I don't know if you noticed there was a picture. Sonette mentioned that we see cheetah around Satara. It's a good area. And we also see monkeys in this part of the park as well. So the other monkeys were called Simango or blue monkeys. These are vervet monkeys. Jane's come past us at that time. We do a night drive on our second night at Tara, which is with sandparks. We can't afford that, but we sit with the clients who do it, and we're looking for nocturnal stuff. This is a night shark, so a fiery neck night shark. They tend to sit in the road because they're nice and warm, and then they get stunned by the light, so they just sit there. But you can see that their eyes show up. So nocturnal animals have a tapetum lucidum, which reflects light to help them see in the dark. I'm nearly done. This is our last stop because we're trying to complete a loop to go back to Johannesburg so they can fly home. So we go down to the southern part of the park here. It's a slightly different area, Cape-to-Kruger. I think possibly some of us will have been because of Mpumalanga work. The area has less like East Africa, and it's slightly thicker, and it's characterized by river valleys, which is quite nice for birding. So you get like saddle-billed stork. I think there's like 30 pairs in Kruger of them, but you tend to see them because they're on major rivers, and really good for elephants. We start seeing huge nosed elephants. And we see hornbills, which are another unique African and Asian family. So in South America, you get toucans, we get hornbills. This is crowned hornbill. It likes the thicker riparian vegetation. This is southern yellow-billed hornbill. It's more widespread through savanna. I haven't included the red-billed hornbill, but red-billed hornbill looks very similar with the red bill, and that's Zazu from The Lion King. And then this is southern ground hornbill. They're critically endangered, but it's a massive turkey. They're quite incredible. You'll often see them. They hunt and they keep stuff in their bills. So sometimes you'll come across one and you'll see it's got like it'll have a chameleon, and it'll have a scorpion, and it'll have a tortoise, and like they just eat in the same amount.
And why are they so endangered?
They've been heavily persecuted, and they're not go that red wine, cocktail, onions, just chopped up some carrots and throw it in a pot and it's very nice. Really. We don't see many parrots, but we will see this is brown-headed parrot. It likes figs, and this is African green pigeon. It also likes figs.
My second favorite.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And in fact, this was an African green pigeon I saw when we were at the ICN conference, so I just threw that in there. I showed nicely the Turako and Grey Go earlier. We also just have a chance of seeing purple-crested Turako. Really beautiful. The Turakos make a terrible sound, but they're very beautiful. They've all got a terrible call. And in and around the camp again at night, we have a chance. This is an African wood owl, really beautiful. So there's a chance we see that. We'll talk a little bit when we're in this part around. So with frameworks, we talk a lot about fire and geology. When we get to this part of the world, we start to talk more about mega herbivores and how they're driving the system, and how you see it with plants with structural defenses rather than what we have here, where you have chemical defenses. You get structural defenses. You can't stop herbivory, you can slow it down. You can move. Yeah, exactly. These guys are a great example. They feed in and amongst the thorns. But again, you've got to come this way. You can't not see a giraffe. My favorite animal, the wild dogs. We saw them last year, which was very lucky. So we're lucky. Yeah, you're smelling us. And sometimes we're lucky we see the rare antelopes. This is a herd of sable antelope.
One of those guys.
And I guess the reason I include this is just to explain that we really start to see diversity of mammals now. Another unique African family are the oxpeckers. So there's two species, yellow bill, and this is red bill. The youngsters have a black bill, and I try and encourage the clients to see how many different backgrounds they can photograph these guys on. So this is on an impala, and there's a zebra, and there's you tend to only see the yellow bills on buffalo. Persecuted, the spotted hyena, but they're pretty epic animals. Their bite force, they crush bone.
Second or third, I think, in the world. I think it's like people fight them as then alligators in these guys.
Yeah, also a good bite force as you. So we should see hippos. And that's basically it. Then I give them some do's and don'ts. You can tell me if you think I'm just anything out here. So do's, I tell them they must ask as many questions as they want to. Let us know how they're feeling at any time. Must use the bathroom when it's available. They're, as I say, 60 to 80. So that's you can't surprise. Tell us if you can't see this, because we have there's 13 people, so you trying to get everyone on stuff is a challenge. I encourage them to use our wine and beer. Or try it rather, to be friendly with us. I explained that we are a tipping country. It's quite important. Or that rather, it's what happens in the service industry, and to be alert and vigilant. And then some do's and don'ts. I told them not to leave valuables unattended, to go wandering off on their own, forget to put on sunblock, distress about malaria. They all come with so much DEET and various stuff. I mean, that it's not a big thing to worry about. Camera batteries, they're not allowed out of their vehicle at Kruger Park because they kept them in the camps. And the last one I try to emphasize is that because you do get clients that really want to take brilliant photographs and stuff, and that's always a thing of it's not need too heavy and awkward. Thank you, team.
When are we doing a green Cape tour?
Oh, we can. We could. The easiest thing to do would be to go to Kirstenbosch because it could convene everyone there.
Yeah.
But the problem is that it's half the experience if you don't have binoculars. Because you can talk through behavior and plumage and details like that. But if you don't have binoculars, yes. So I have 2 pairs. Yeah.
I would
We'd be happy
really
to do it. Yeah. I mean, the other option is to the local stuff. So Kirstenbosch is probably the easiest one. Strandfontein is really good, like really, really good. But we have to be in a car. I mean, get out. It's quite a big area, so you want to drive around to the pans and look at the pans. Yeah.
Maybe for our end of your event.
Yeah. Option. Anyway, thank you. Constructive feedback. Too long? Anything I'm missing?
Don't you want to add in some vernacular? Like
Yeah.
how to greet people and
It'd be good to explain to them the difference between now, just now.
How to
Yeah.
greet people
Yeah, that's a nice idea.
Cape
That's a
Town.
very cool idea. I'll do that. Yeah.
So how many people are in the group? Like 14.
We're 13 until day 10, and then we're 15 because we get 2 guys in the Kruger with us.
And you split that across 2 vehicles.
Yeah. Or 4 vehicles. But yeah, Dalton and I, we will have 5 and 6. There'll be 1 vehicle will have 5, 1 will have 6. So it's 11.
And if you don't mind me asking, how much does each pay for one of these?
I don't know the
Oh, you
answer
don't
to
know,
that. I
okay.
don't know.
It's like all included, like the transport, the
Everything-
accommodation, the
Everything's
meals.
included. Everything's included, except they have to pay for their own alcohol.
Okay.
I suspect for a tour like this, they are paying about $7,000 or $8,000 a person.
What's that?
And then 40.
I mean, that includes their flights and stuff.
No, it doesn't include the flights. I could look it up.
And are they journalists? Are they Kelly
No one comes on the tour expecting, like, they all expect us to be reimbursed and then other stuff. How skilled they are, it's quite varied. Yeah. You get ones who, like, you can see they study the book because they're asking you questions on you see this today, and then there's others like you're on day 10 and you see the same thing 10 days. And then they'll say, Nick, what's that? One of the big things that's really nice about it for me, there's several things I really enjoy about it, but I think 2 things is I really, really come to appreciate time away from screens. I don't have time to be on my phone except at the very end of the day, and I don't have time I'm not on the laptop. And that like detox, I think, is really good for me. The other thing is that it's always we have a really nice tradition where we, at the end of every day, because we have meals, we're with them for all meals. At the end of every day, we do a checklist. So Dalton and I alternate every day. They get given a booklet, and we go through everything we've seen. It's a little bit of a way of reinforcing what they've seen. It also helps because you're going from all these fabulous places, but you can actually kind of almost become numb to the experience, and then you talk through things. But what's really nice, we ask them individually, go around the table, what was your bird of the day, what was your mammal of the day? And it's so often that I'm reminded of how much we have here that we just take for granted. People will say, they'll say, the hardy dog was so cool. That's like, that annoys us. We're annoyed by hardy dog, because they'll say that, they'll give you a different perspective on it. There's always voted bird of the day. We'll see something incredible, and Dalton and I will vote for that, but it'll be 2 against 11 for the line of bird. But anyway, so that's really cool. Basically, a sense of gratitude for what we have.
What are those tiny blue ones?
Blue wax balls.
They're like tiny.
Yeah, I didn't show any what they call the estrelids. The waxes are 5 inches, or we see them as we go north. Yeah.
And so all sugar birds have the long tails, right?
Well, the females don't. They have a short. The females have short.
Male sugar birds have long tails. And juveniles.
Yes, because they're growing tails. Yeah. Or they're in molting. But there could have been a male who's molting between a new tail.
But can the sunbirds also have the long tails?
Depends on the species. The
Sunbird.
malachite had a long tail. Yeah.
And in the Cape, do we have long tails?
Well, the malachite is
that
you see here. The others don't have long tails. The others, we've got several species here in the Cape. Amethyst, which is a largely black one. Southern double collared, which is the most common. It's got a red and stripe and a green head. So they age a short tail. But you get ones.
So if I see a bird with a long tail that looks like a sunbird, it's probably a sugar bird in the Cape. If it's not.
And if you're standing on protein, if it's on protein.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's a sugar bird.
Yeah, you can say you've seen an endemic family. The plants really care about seeing representatives of the families, because there's a big move in birding for the hardcore people. You can't see everything, but you can try and get a representative of every family. So we have to get them rock jumper and sugarbird. Those are the big. I mean, sugarbird's easy. We just turn up at Kirstenbosch and walk around. You'll eventually get one. Rock jumper, that's tricky. That's at Royals, and they can be up the slope and you can't get. So we actually have 2 goes at that. The way we design a tour, we go to do it. We go there on the way there, and then if we haven't got it, we go back through the same way.
Because that gives them more fun.
Yeah. It flips around. So I mentioned Gurney sugarbird. Gurney sugarbird much harder to see than Cape sugarbird. There's Drakensberg rock jumper, which is much easier to see than Cape rock jumper. If you go to the Drakensberg, you kind of can't help but see Drakensberg rock jumper, whereas Cape's tricky, so it's inverted. But we don't do the Drakensberg stuff on this. There are tours. They have what they call the South Africa Endemic Classic, and then you go to all the sites. You go looking for all of the stuff, and that must be. I've never done that tour, and I can't imagine how stressful it is, because then the expectation, that's usually hardcore clients, because they're the ones who say, I don't want to miss any of the endemics. Because that's the way that's like the way you bird, if you're trying to have a massive list, is you go to a region, you must see all of the endemic stuff. Everything else is nice, but maybe you'll see it somewhere else where it occurs. But I couldn't deal with that stress, because there are clients, it's then like, it doesn't matter if you've seen 39 out of 40, they talk about the 40, the ones that you did. Yeah.
Quick question: the Australian gun, will that just hang around here and never go back?
That was there for several months towards the end of last year. I haven't heard an update now. I don't know if that's because it's left or because people have stopped going to, because it's a mission to go to another place. Or if it's dead. But it was attempting to breed. Yeah. Birders are obsessed with stuff that's unusual, which is also weird, because most of that stuff ends up dead because it ends where it shouldn't be. So it's much better to see something that's common where it's meant to be, because then it's doing what it's meant to do. I think I genuinely think birding, we're seeing the effects of climate change. Obviously there's it's much easier with social media and instant messaging and stuff now. So it's naturally going to distort. But the number of reports of rare birds seems to be doing this, and part of me thinks it's all these extreme events that stuff gets blown off course.
Stephen's not here. She was telling me that the Department of Agriculture yesterday did a presentation because they do a flyover every few years where they photograph the entire Western Cape so they can see how many more people have put up shade nets, what's growing where. And they are seeing climate-related impact in terms of planting season, infrastructure, etc. And she thinks that's quite an interesting proposition for us. I think similar then to the birding, they are seeing shifts in where plants are.
I know, in fact, it was, there's a very funny anecdote, because when I joined Green Cape, I was asked in my interview, Fatima, who was the HR manager, said, if you could be a superhero, who would you be? Before I had a chance to answer, Ray said, I want to change it, tell us what bird you would be. And I nearly gave a different answer to the answer I did give. But the answer I nearly gave was actually something I told my best friend that he used in his interview, and he got his job with it, which is about a ruby-throated hummingbird. And they're a 5-gram bird, and they fly across the Gulf of Mexico seasonally. And they're in real trouble because they fly across and they have just enough energy to make that 1,000 miles or whatever, 1,000 kilometers, whatever that journey is. They have just enough energy to get outside, and then they need to feed. And the plants they feed on are moving south with climate-related changes. So it's like a natural movement of the plants, which is extending the journey, and they just dropping off because they need to replenish.
So you don't think that they might evolve to meet,
Well, I mean,
those things?
this is the whole point with climate change, with anthropogenic climate change, as opposed to just climate adaptivity. It's the speed at which happens. Things don't evolve. It takes thousands or hundreds of generations for those kind of changes to happen. It doesn't happen on the same time scale that we're seeing change happen. And therein is our challenge.
But how do we fix it?
Well, that's also that's a very long conversation that we can have, because we're doing all these things. We like the charismatic ones. Think about the panda. What are we doing for the panda? But then there's other stuff that doesn't. I don't know. Does anyone care about the Somali gnat? Whatever it is, or the, so.
Dashed to save on the car. But Nick, that was awesome.
Thank you, guys.
So good luck.
Oh, hi, Roldan. Hi, Roldan.
Well done, live.
It was. I don't know if you heard it.
Cheers, Nick. Thanks so much.
Roldan?
Yeah, thanks so much, Nick.
Oh, I'm glad you heard it.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you for joining in.
No, thanks. That was epic. Thank you. Have a good trip.
Oh, you got a comment here. Let's see. Where do we leave your trip? Come talk to me on Monday. Cheers, Robert.
Actually, after I heard the